Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Jim. How are you? Great to be
Good.
here.
Well, wonderful to have you here. Wow, once I got a hold of your book, Where We Bloom, it's like, have you met anybody that doesn't want a outdoor space like this?
I know there is a little bit of, I don't know, getaway porn, I guess, for people who want to have their own backyard escape. And that's what I like to collect.
Exactly. I thought I pulled out some of the ones that were really intriguing to me, and I thought maybe we use that as a backdrop and reach a deliverable for people of things they should think about if they're going to have a space like this where they can work all their gardening magic. Okay.
I would love to talk about that. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Could you tell us a little bit about this garden and the person that built this and what they do and what their goal was?
Absolutely. So I'll just back up for a second and tell you that when I wanted to create this book, Where We Bloom, I did put out a call for submissions from of all our members in Slow Flowers, and asked people to share their spaces, share photographs of their creative spaces. And this one I actually went after because I think sometimes people are so close to what they've created, their beautiful gardens, and they just think, oh, this isn't as good as someone else's. But I was in love with this space. It's owned by a woman named Kelly Hill. She's in Missouri and she in the Ozarks, and she owns a floral business called Blossom Time Hill Flower Farm, and the hill comes from her last name. And I would call it Kelly a farmer florist. And necessity often prompts our creativity. Nothing like a deadline to get you to clean up your garden for a garden tour, right?
Absolutely.
In this case, Kelly's daughter Shelby was getting married, and Kelly wanted to have the wedding out in the garden at her flower farm, and she commissioned this beautiful, it is almost like a chapel, this beautiful cottage style structure. I think she convinced her husband that they needed to build it for their daughter's wedding. So it
What a great organizing principle, huh? We've got this need, we need to do it.
And Kelly told me that actually she always, when her children were younger, she always wanted to have a playhouse for her daughter and son, and just it never, fit the budget. And so that's the other thing I think happens is that people, we have this connection to our childhood hideaways. Whether you and I discussed this before, whether it's the tablecloth over the card table or, two sheets on with clothespins on the clothesline made into a tent.
Right.
And we often carry those memories and that emotional sense of, having a secret space into our adult garden design decisions. And that inspired Kelly too.
Well, she obviously had some great memories to produce something like this.
Yeah, and I see you've got some of the tips that are on this slide there.
Yeah, explain a little bit about building codes people need to be aware of or find out about. And
Yeah, well, we all want to talk about the beauty and the cool materials and how we're going to decorate our backyard spaces or our creative spaces, but you have to start with practicalities a little bit, and that is making sure that what you do is going to fit with your local building codes. Most municipalities have codes that they call these accessory dwelling units or detached dwelling units, but basically they have to be under a certain square footage to not require a permit. And so a lot of the shed builders and studio builders and these modular manufacturers, they are aware of that. So they actually design accordingly. But if you're doing your own thing, check that out. It's usually like maybe 10 by 20 or 10 by 10. So 10 by 10 would be the size of an actual bedroom, 10, it's 100 square feet. 10 by 20, a little more generous. And that's more of the scale that Kelly has here. I will say having a high ceiling makes a tiny space feel much more, much higher in volume. And the way she designed it with the vaulted ceiling allowed a lot more light, and, added windows on the upper level was sort of a brilliant idea.
that's a great tip. We have 9-foot ceilings in the house, and that was a great investment going with the little longer studs. So that would be the same outside, I'm sure. Identifying the activities that draw you outdoors, people, the artists that built these, a lot of them that you featured in your book, they had needs on certain things and they cataloged those and then tried to build toward that, right?
Well, in a perfect world, that would happen, right? Sometimes we just work with what we have, but I do think that sort of an important thread that wove through the book is that creative people can nurture their whatever their passion is, be it, photography or pottery or floral arranging, or any kind of garden compatible activity, seed starting. Anyway, whenever you have a space that's dedicated, it seems like that really gets a lot of your attention then. And so that really elevates your engagement with that. And this is the inside peek at Blossom Time Hill. So I think if you do identify what it is that, if you could have your secret getaway space, if you could devote space to something that you're passionate about, start there and then start dreaming. I will tell you, Jim, my inspiration for a lot of this book started in 2008 when I published this book. I don't know if you remember this, Stylish Sheds and Elegant Hideaways.
Absolutely.
And this came out, if you can believe it, in 2008. And one year when I think right the year it came out, I was speaking at the San Francisco Flower and Garden Show about stylish sheds. And I had these little index cards, and as people entered the audience, we handed out the index cards to everyone. And we had an exercise. And that was during my lecture, I said, on one side of the card, sketch your dream space. What would it look like if it was in your garden? How would you create it? What would the materials be? Excuse me. And then on the other side, list the things that you would do in it. And then people shared those with me and they were fantastic. And I would encourage anyone to just start there. It's almost like a dream journal, but this is your dream getaway, your dream garden space. And you'll be surprised at what you come up with.
Now, I can't imagine, Deborah, how can you not be creative in this space right here?
Right. I love it. And I really love the fact that, it's right in the garden. And that's another pragmatic decision. Like, think about where you're going to place it, because Kelly's cutting fields and cutting garden beds are literally right outside the door. So she's able to cut on demand when she has either an on-farm event, or she sometimes works with photographers and lets them come do like engagement photos on site, and she'll cut for them, and also for her private customers. So it's efficient, and yet it's so beautiful.
Now, is this Robin's
no,
or is that the photographer?
Robin Stubert's the photographer. The woman we see here is Cynthia Zamaria, and Cynthia's our cover girl too. This is the cover of the book, and that's sort of a nice inviting peek into
that's beautiful
kind of the image that you're seeing here. I love this structure because it was an off the lot shed at one of the big box stores, which shows that it can be very accessible and, within, a non-custom budget, but just buy something that's, kind of a basic and then add your own twist to it. Cynthia and her husband are what I guess you would call them habitual home remodelers. And this project was part of a garden renovation that she did in a town outside of Toronto, where her husband grew up. And she oriented this structure to overlook a lake. She did customize it. As you can see, there's a bank of 3 windows across the back wall. I think, that was probably a bit of an upgrade, but you see how they're placed between the studs. So she worked within like the parameters of the construction. Cynthia is a photo stylist. She works with a lot of photographers and lifestyle magazines in Canada, and she has a blog which is called House and Flower, and she really shares tips that make things accessible. As you see here, the floor is plywood. It's not fancy. It's sweepable, as she said. She's tramping in and out of the garden with flats of seedlings and spilling soil, and the only indulgence that Cynthia said she invested in was a sink that is large enough to put buckets in, to fill the buckets or to fill the watering can.
This
But
is a
it's,
beautiful space, and
yeah,
what you said, this is not dissimilar to what you might see at Home Depot or Lowe's Tough Shed, ones that you
right.
can buy pre-made and upgrade a little bit here and there if you wanted to.
Yeah, like you see that cool light fixture, that's an upgrade. I think, do you have another image of that structure? Oh, I guess not. I'll just mention also, they did add a standing seam metal roof, especially because it's, Toronto winters are pretty, harsh, and she wanted to be able to support the snow weight. But it's not heated. It's definitely not used in the winter. In the winter, and this is another thing to consider, it's a folly. It's like an architectural sculpture in your garden that you see from the home, and it becomes just another focal point in the garden.
Absolutely. Now this one, it was one of my favorites in the whole book. This just draws you in.
I agree. I couldn't believe it when I saw this. This is owned by a woman named Sandy Feigl, and she is a florist outside of Seattle in Woodinville, Washington. And her business is called Verbena Floral. And Sandy, again, back to that kind of necessity as the mother of invention, she didn't have a studio, and she was producing a lot of wedding flowers for, during the wedding season, and just using a pop-up tent in her garden. So she convinced her husband, that Rudy, that he needed to build her a garage, and wouldn't it be great if they had a 2-car garage? So Rudy went to work and built this structure, and I honestly do not think a car has ever been inside of it, because Sandy promptly moved in with her her collections of vases and work tables, and you can see here it's just a beautiful, inviting space, right in with a beautiful vantage point of a green belt behind the you see through the windows.
He's very talented, obviously. And I'm noticing the theme here, Deborah, is there's a lady convincing the man that something is needed very badly, right?
Yes, but Rudy was very proud of this, and I would say that these folks are proudly frugal, and almost all of the building materials were purchased at a place in Seattle called Second Use, which recycles construction material, especially salvage and vintage. So of note, you see how that doorway opens all the way up.
Yeah.
They found 2 sets of these accordion style metal doors. It's closed. When you look through it across the back, you sort of see the outline of the frame. That's closed, and then on the front it's open. Yeah. And they think that maybe they were from some 1950s cabana or pool house or something, completely pristine in their condition, and they fit right into this space perfectly. But you just have to be a sleuth to find materials like that. You have to be consistent and in your search to find just the right thing. If you're willing to be patient, you'll find it.
Yep. And also a good shopper, because a lot of at least around here, a lot of the secondhand stores or secondhand building materials, they don't give it away either.
Right. As a matter of fact, there's some component here. I don't know if it show. I think it's on the sides, that are panels that came from the Boeing salvage in Seattle. So, you also have your local, people have their local secrets, whatever region they're in, where there's maybe some great salvage that's underappreciated and maybe you can get for a steal.
Yep. Now this one, this looks like a pretty big property and not a very large unit. How did they place this one?
Well, Jennifer and Adam O'Neill are farmer florists, a husband and wife team in Winterset, Iowa. And for those of you listening, Winterset, Iowa is where Bridges of Madison County was based. It's a beautiful historic area, and they have a 10-year-old flower farm. They do have acreage. I think they have 20 acres altogether. They don't farm on all of it. They farm on about 5 acres. But the orientation of this structure was specifically at the end of the driveway, or the lane that comes into their property, because Jennifer and Adam have a loyal customer base for CSA flowers, and the CSA, is known by people who buy consumer supported agriculture,
right?
Buckets of food and produce, but they have it for flowers. So especially and this was especially helpful during COVID, they would leave the various buckets and bouquets inside for customers to pick up safely and not, kind of at their own leisure. But this is got so much character, and, while it's practical, it's also quite beautiful as a design element. You see that the flowers are attached up around the doorway, and this has become a favorite place for photographers to bring their clients for photo shoots.
So attractive. One thing I noticed in the book, Deborah, was all the styles of the 37 featured units were so different and so personable. That had to be a lot of fun for you to hear the backstories.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the part of I always loved about being a design writer. And back in the days when I was doing a lot of stories for garden design, getting that connection between the owner and the environmental space that they are so proud of is often makes it more special. Oh, I'm so glad you shared this photo. This is inside, not the structure we just saw, but another structure on Pepper Harrow property, which was when they bought it, there had been people had owned horses, and there was a stable with 3 stalls. So this is a metal, not too sexy on the outside, just a utilitarian metal structure that they converted for workshops, floral design workshops, flower farming workshops, and also these wonderful chef dinners that they host with local chefs, and customers are on the waiting list for the next one all the time. But you can sort of see on the left in the back there, that's still one of the metal grates in front of the last stall that they use for storage. But it doesn't matter, because the way they've decorated it, they have flowers hanging overhead. You can kind of see from this photo, there's twinkling cafe lights. They've painted the interior sort of this creamy white. And yes, the floor is still, frankly, when I first saw it, it was wood chips. And later they finished it with concrete. But it doesn't matter. People just love being outdoors. They open the doors and see the farm while they're having their amazing farm to table dinner.
This is such a cozy space. Who wouldn't want to sit there and enjoy a meal? And
absolutely, right? Yep. The romance of it.
Now, what about this? This doesn't look like it was very easy to build to me.
Right. I know. This is one of my favorite spaces in the book. We call it the Sun Catcher, and it's in a Bowling Green, Kentucky, owned by Jessica Broyles. She has a business called Starry Fields Flower Farm. And Jessica mainly grows for her local farmers markets and local deliveries, and realized that she wanted a structure on her property, and she could have just bought a greenhouse kit or a commercial greenhouse. And she was working with a photographer who said, why don't you, actually, I think Jessica wanted a barn. And the photographer said, everyone has a barn. Why don't you build a greenhouse? And don't do it like everyone else. Do something inventive. So Jessica came up with this idea inspired by glasshouse architecture. Again, another one of those convince your husband to do the project things. There are something like 88 recycled windows that comprise this beautiful space. And that's part of, isn't that part of the charm?
Absolutely. This just draws you in.
It's also become a beautiful workshop space. And during COVID, they were allowed, by whatever early wedding policies took place in her county, she could have micro weddings inside for just like a couple with 5 or 6 guests. And it all of a sudden became a really important part of her business that she had never intended. But at nighttime with candles and twinkling lights, it just glows. And it's just one of those dreamy spaces you don't want to leave.
Well, now don't tell me that her husband built this.
He did. And
oh my gosh, because now I feel completely incapable.
They are so talented. They also have just cooked up an idea. This has nothing to do with the structure, but they have this natural sloping hillside, and they've decided to create a natural outdoor amphitheater and build a stage and start having music festivals on this property. So they're very creative.
Yeah. Now, Deborah, the book is fabulous, and we got a lot of good ideas, and my wife and I are in the process of selecting an idea for a space we have. The whole slow flowers movement, this is just, it's been building on itself, but there's been something going on in the last year or year and a half, right? Give me a lay of the land of what's happening there.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you're hinting at, but basically Slow Flower Society is an organization for people who are both professionals and enthusiasts in supporting local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers. So either growing or design, or maybe a do-it-yourself hobbyist, somebody who, like me, who's not a professional florist. What happened was, I'm a storyteller, basically. That's how I started working with you at Garden Design, was writing about people's beautiful garden spaces and their stories. And during the last year, I don't want to say it was my COVID project because I wasn't bored, but I was so excited to have an opportunity to start a publishing company called Bloom Imprint. Is that what you were hinting at?
Yeah, and just, I know it's just really taking off with so many people in our town here. There's a family that has, I think, 3 acres, and they're doing the CSA, and they have cut flower subscriptions you can have, and that seems to be a real draw for people now.
Well, I think it's just a continuum that I've been trying to advocate for over 10 years, and it just takes repetition and the power of I guess showing up and having your flowers do your marketing for you, because once people get hooked on local flowers, and once they realize that they have a choice to buy flowers from a farmer in their community and keep their dollars at home and, support local agriculture, they're much more conscious about their buying choices then. They're not just picking up something wrapped in cellophane at the supermarket that, you have no idea who grew it and how it was grown. And so that's sort of the premise with Slow Flowers, is encouraging people to be more conscious about seasonality and knowing that gardeners get this, Jim, like what blooms when, we get, but many consumers just see, a flower like, I don't know, like a peony, and think it should be available 12 months of the year. And,
Right.
It is, if you're willing to pay, $15 a stem and ship it in from Chile or something in our off season, but it's definitely not the same feeling as getting it cut from your garden and knowing that it's just, budding up right in the end of May, early June.
That's got to be so fun, this whole arena that you're involved with. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. And,
This
getting
is
to
more of the space inside, right?
Yes, exactly. This is a good example of one of the questions you had asked me, Jim, earlier, which was, can something be both utilitarian and beautiful? And, I would argue that the way this very humble structure is built, with the exposed ceiling joist and beams and basically sawhorse supports for the tables, still is so appealing. And I think it is because of all the details that Jessica has added. Like you see on the right, there's a cool light fixture hanging from the rafters, and the detail in all the windows has made this space very pretty, and who wouldn't want to be in there. But the versatility of having these kind of sawhorse table legs means if she does have a large gathering where people want to be seated, all of those tables can be moved out very easily and converted to, say, seating for a micro wedding.
Look at imagine the smell in there too, with the wood and the flowers, and then the being able to, the view you have and everything. It's just fabulous.
Yep. It's pretty sweet.
So I wanted everybody to know, you go to bloomimprint.com/shop, and Debra's book is Where We Bloom, 37 intimate spaces that you can grab ideas to make one of these spaces your own, with your own ideas, and maybe merging several others. And Debra, this was really a lot of fun to browse through there and read of the passions of the different people and how it came about. And I did take from there was convincing to be done here and there, huh?
Well, you just happen to pick the ones that have the great stories. Actually, it's just amazing that, some of the ways that people have converted something that was, no one could see the potential except for them. And, I think as creative people, we're always trying to figure it out and see what how we can push the boundaries of making a personal expression through flowers and through the garden. And it just translates really well to a studio space or a workshop or a potting shed or a greenhouse. So I would say, start looking around your yard, and it sounds like you're halfway there, Jim, with your design
Yeah,
planning.
this was perfect for us because we wouldn't be clever enough to think of something like this, one of these on our own, but we can merge a few ideas and make adjustments and make it our own. So
Well, promise you'll share the photos with me when you do that.
absolutely. So thanks for putting this book together, Deborah. And you have another publication coming up soon, I hear.
Yeah, so where Bloom Imprint is the sort of publishing arm of Slow Flowers, and the next book we have coming out this fall is with floral designer Holly Chappell, called A Life in Flowers. And then at the end of the year, we're publishing Growing Wonder by flower farmer Felicia Alvarez, and her book is all about growing garden roses for floral design. So you can find that information at that website too.
Wow, that's so exciting. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it so much.
Bye-bye.